Welcome to AI for Everyone, the podcast that demystifies artificial intelligence and makes it useful for teachers, students, employees, small business owners, and lifelong learners. I'm your host, Brett Hansen, a 25-year veteran teacher with 2 years of experience exploring, implementing, and teaching AI to people of all ages. As a Google and ISTE educator, I'm here to help you navigate this quickly changing world with confidence, curiosity, and a focus on ethical, practical use. Most weeks we'll start with a real-world story, introduce a free or low-cost AI tool, teach a future-ready skill, and finish with either timely AI news, an interview, or an AI enrichment. But every once in a while I'll surprise you with a twist. So whether you're new to AI or ready to level up, you're in the right place. Let's get started. In episode 10, we will explore some of the many safety issues and safety fears connected to AI. I want to start today with a story that gets right to the heart of what we're talking about. AI safety for humans. But it's not about killer robots or sci-fi futures. It's about real people. And we all know that. In her extraordinary book, The Empire of AI, journalist Karen Howe tells the story of Oscarina, a Venezuelan refugee living in Colombia. After fleeing the economic collapse in her home country, Oscarina needed a way to make a living. She became a data labeler, one of millions of what are called ghost workers, who perform the essential human-powered tasks that train artificial intelligence systems. Her job was to train AI for self-driving cars. She would spend hours staring at images from a car's perspective, meticulously drawing digital boxes around every single object, every car, every pedestrian, every traffic light. This work requires incredible precision. An inaccurate line could mean the AI fails to learn what a person looks like. But she was paid a tiny amount for each completed task, often earning just a few dollars for hours of painstaking work. And if her work was rejected for any reason, she wasn't paid at all. Now this story sticks with me because it reframes what we mean by AI safety. I mean, I was thinking about it beforehand as the safety for me from the perhaps mistakes or ill intentions of AI or bad operators. But safety isn't just about preventing bad things from those people or superintelligence from taking over the world. It's also about the safety, dignity, and economic justice for the people building it, often invisible people who are only brought to light because of the work of people like Karen Howe. So it's about the power dynamics as much as anything else between trillion-dollar companies and the hidden global workforce they rely on. And when I'm reading these stories, I'm reading the book right now, I can't help but think again and again about how many times I've heard people like Sam Altman and Dario Amodei talk about how AI is for the betterment of humanity. So it's kind of hard to swallow when I'm reading about Oscarina. So as we talk about the risks and rewards of AI today, let's keep her in mind, because ensuring AI is safe means ensuring it's safe, fair, and, according to the creators of AI, beneficial for as much of the world as possible, including the people living in the global south. So this, of course, leads us back to that clarification that all three of the major global AI superpowers are in the global north, in the United States of America, in the European Union, and in China. But it would be great if they, or at least some of them, worked to help build skills for survival for people like Oscarina. So if AI is supposed to serve all of humanity, it should do much more for them. And perhaps we can help move this along by focusing on the tools that we could use to evaluate AI specifically. And that brings us to our tool of the week, which isn't an app, but more a digital information source. So you can go and find what are called model cards for every AI system if you dig deep enough and try hard enough. So if we're teaching our audience, whether it's students or customers, about the AI tool, we should really make sure we understand how it functions. Now, a model card is basically like a nutrition label for an AI model. It's a short document that tells you what the AI is, what it was designed to do, and just as importantly, what it wasn't designed to do. And the idea was pioneered by Dr. Margaret Mitchell while she was at Google. She realized that if we're going to use an AI for anything important, we need to know basically its ingredients and its limitations. So what's on a model card? It usually includes 5 or 6 elements or components. The first is the model details. The name of the model, who developed it, and when. Pretty basic stuff. Then it also includes the intended use, which doesn't mean that that's the only thing it's used for, but the intended use tells us a lot. What is this model supposed to be used for? For example, quote, this model is intended to generate creative stories, ideas for fiction writers, end quote. It might also list out of scope uses like, quote, this model should not be used to generate legal or medical advice. The third component is training data. And this is really, really important. What kind of information was it trained on? Was it trained on medical journals or just a broad scrape of the internet, which is very, very important if it is giving some kind of advice or if people are using it for that kind of advice, even if it wasn't intended for that. A model trained on Reddit will have a very different worldview than one trained on classical literature like Shakespeare. The fourth component is performance metrics. How well does it actually work? And crucially, does it work equally well for everyone? A good model card will show performance data across different groups. For example, it might show that a facial recognition model is 99% accurate for white men, but only 75% accurate for black women. And that's a massive safety issue, especially if that software or AI is being used for the police work. So we should know. And then the last one is mostly bias and limitations. So here the creators should explicitly state the known biases. For instance, this model was trained primarily on English language text from North America and may produce culturally biased or inaccurate content for other regions. Now, you might be thinking, that's great, but where do I find these? The truth is, they're not as easily accessible as they should be. I mean, I think it would be great if it was required that there was an easy link to this type of information, even if it's not called a model card, but this kind of information was easily accessible immediately inside the AI program. But that's not usually the case. But with a small amount of effort, you can generally find them. Now, when you're evaluating an AI tool for your business or for a class, you might think about creating your own mini model card beforehand, before you go and look at the details. And you would basically ask these 5 questions. Who made this and what was their goal? Can I tell from my approach to it by entering the program? Can I tell that? 2, what was it likely trained on? 3, where does it excel? 4, where does it fail or produce biased results? And 5, what should I absolutely not use it for? Now, doing this will build your AI critical evaluation skills. And remember, that's our main goal in this whole process, is to become better AI users and to cultivate our specific AI taste. So if this process moves you from a passive user to an active, informed investigator, that's a really, really good thing. You can find examples of model cards by searching for Google Model Card Toolkit or, quote, Hugging Face model cards. It's a powerful step towards responsible AI use, and it will help more of us ensure that the tools we are using are the right ones for the job and probably safer then. Now, in addition to model cards, there are also leaderboards, AI leaderboards, which have been around for a while. And so if a model card is like the nutrition label, you can think of a leaderboard as the public ranking of different AI models. It's like looking up the stats for athletes or high scores in a video game, but for artificial intelligence. Now, these leaderboards test different AI models on the same set of tasks and then rank them based on how well they perform. And these leaderboards are, working for subscribers, which becomes problematic, and I'll mention that in a minute. So for everyday users, they can be, if trustworthy, a fantastic way to get a quick sense of who the major players are and what they're good at. And you don't have to be a coder to look at or understand them. There are a few that you can check out quite easily. A really popular one is the Hugging Face Open LLM leaderboard. I have no idea why it's called Hugging Face, but there it is. It tests open source models, the ones that are free to use most of the time, on things like reasoning and language skills. Another one that is more interesting, a little less popular but more interesting, is the LMSys or LMSYS chatbot arena. And this one is unique because it's powered by people. You chat with two different AI models without knowing which is which, and at the end, you vote for which one gave you the best answers. It's like a blind taste test for chatbots, and it's a great measure of which models are the most helpful and conversational in the real world. So this is a good resource to go to if you want a conversational chatbot. Now, one thing I really need to tell you about these leaderboards are a few things. First, it's important to notice what they're being tested on. A model that's at the top of the leaderboard for writing computer code might not be the best one for writing a poem or emails. And then also, it's important to remember that a high score isn't necessarily the most important thing. The leaderboard tells you which model performed best on a specific test or task, but the model card tells you why and whether it has known biases or was trained on weird data and other information like that. The model cards are more detailed and thorough in one sense and a little bit harder to read. So you want to do them together, really. Now, a third important thing to remember is that these leaderboards are especially important when AI is new. And they are, the labs pay to have their information for their data, for their AI to be tested. And so they're constantly trying to get the best score they can. And recently, I think it was about a year ago, Meta got caught hacking the system. They basically released a higher performing model for the evaluation, but then shared a weaker model with the public because it would function faster in larger applications and have fewer problems. And so the leaderboards can be a bit misleading and unreliable. But if you use them together, the leaderboard to see the top performers and the model card to understand their details and qualities, you can get a much better view, and you will get better at picking the right tool for the job and cultivating your AI taste. And remember, that's one of our main goals. Now, building on this idea, we can move to the skill of the week, which is ethical evaluation and safety evaluation. And this is the practical skill of testing an AI's output before you trust it or use it. It's about moving past, wow, that's a great answer, that's so amazing, that's so going to save me so much time, to wait a minute, is that answer fair? Is it accurate? And is it safe for the users, for people who are affected by it, in lots of different ways? So AI safety isn't just a job for developers to do so that we can use it. It's a responsibility for users. And this is one of the areas in public school where we, in my opinion, not just public schools, but society, did not do a great job with the amazing tools on the internet, especially things like social media. We allowed users to be too passive. And so we really don't want to make that same mistake in AI. So here's a simple 4-part framework you can use, and you can think of it like putting on 4 different filters over your glasses or your perspective, or like putting on different sunglasses, or however you want to remember it. So what we want to do is we want to approach each filter with these 3 sort of tasks. 1, what's the focus question? 2, why does it matter? And 3, how do we do it? So the first filter is the fact checker filter. And so the question is this information true? I mean, this is really a straightforward question. AI models are known to hallucinate. And then it's confusing because sometimes they'll start getting better, like ChatGPT 4 got better, and then ChatGPT 4.0 was much better. And then they came out with o3, and there were more hallucinations again. I think most likely o3 will get better, have fewer hallucinations, and then that reasoning advantage will be worth it, but it's still unfortunate. So we have to make sure that they are factually correct or not use that part of our research or information. One report estimated recently that approximately 57% of online content is now either AI generated or processed through AI. And a lot of that's not fact checked. So we really don't want to contribute to the deterioration of the process. So how do we do it? Well, first, you never take a generated fact, statistic, or quote at face value. Remember, we never trust AI. We use it as a tool, but we don't trust it. So we want to cross-reference with a reliable primary source, and then, if possible, go and take a look at it. Or, as many companies are doing, they're hiring specific teams and people to be the AI augmenters or auditors, basic, fact checkers and bias detectors. So some of the newer tools are better at providing easy links or access to the sources. So it's still a lot faster and a lot better. I really like Google Gemini's deep research, but it usually provides you with so many sources. It's really time consuming. And then if I want to limit the number of sources, I'll use Notebook LM because it has a 10 source limit. And you can also limit the number of sources less than that and choose your own. There's a lot more control, but less content. So we always remember, we're never going to trust AI. We're going to verify and use it as a tool. The second filter is the bias detector filter. And the question is this output fair to everyone, or at least as many people as possible? Does it rely on stereotypes? Are there any that I can see or imagine coming up? And this matters because AI models are trained on data from our world, and our world contains bias. These systems can easily perpetuate and even amplify unfair stereotypes about race, gender, and culture. And we've seen this in everything from hiring tools that got companies in trouble, that have made way too many preferences for male candidates, to medical algorithms that are less accurate for patients of color. And so what we need to do is we need to look at an output and ask ourselves, who is being centered in this response? Who is being left out? So, for example, if you were to ask an AI for a list of famous scientists and then it only gives you European men, that's problematic. So you would have to focus in on your prompts, and I basically tell it what I want as much as possible. And then I'm also using more and more custom GPTs and Google Gems where I can put those expectations in the instructions. Now, the third filter is the hidden agenda filter. And the question we want to ask is, what goal is this AI trying to achieve, and does it align with my goal? And why this matters is really straightforward. This gets to the alignment problem that we've discussed in the past, and we will discuss some more. An AI will optimize for its given goal, and sometimes that has unintended consequences. For example, a marketing AI might generate clickbait headlines because its goal is to maximize engagement, even if your goal was to provide thoughtful, nuanced information. So we have to be really careful with hidden possible agendas. And how do we do this? We look at the output and ask, what is this response doing? Is it trying to be helpful, persuasive, or just agreeable? Is it oversimplifying a complex topic? So we need to be aware that the AI's goal, like predicting the next word, isn't the same as your goal, like getting a deep, truthful answer. And it is a tool that we must control. The fourth and final filter is the privacy advocate filter. So the question is, did I share any sensitive information in my prompt? could this output reveal private data? And this is really important because large language models are trained on vast data sets that can include sensitive personal information. And there have been real-world cases of models accidentally leaking user data. And there are right now all kinds of examples of AI labs being crafty, let's say. They're not necessarily lying, but they're being crafty to try to get information that you might not want them to use. For example, when I was recently making some more custom GPTs for evaluating student writing at different grade levels for the Wisconsin Forward exam, I remembered, fortunately before I finished for the day, that there was a little check mark at the bottom of the additional, there's a place where you can add more tools or information at the bottom. There's this tiny little check that it's like a caret, and you click it, and then it reveals that there is an option to allow the AI to use the responses in future AI data sets, but it is defaulted to select. So if you don't go look for it, you have given it permission by default, which I think is unethical. I think they should default it to unselect so that I have to choose to give them the information. So those are the kinds of things that we really have to be careful for. So we have to treat every chat with an AI like a public forum. I tell our students at schools all the time, nothing you type onto a computer that's connected to the internet is private. Nothing. So we don't paste in sensitive student data information to any AI in any way. We don't put in any confidential business strategies. We don't put any personal medical details. And we're mindful of the data that we're handing over because everything we type in can be accessed and used. So by running your AI generations through this 4-step check, you will not only improve your process, but you'll build the essential skill of ethical evaluation and contribute to more AI safety. It's how we move from being passive consumers of technology to being confident, responsible architects of its use in our lives. Now, this week, we are sharing an enrichment segment in the form of a question. And so it's kind of news, but it's really more answering an important question that has to do with safety. And the question is, what are the smartest AI thinkers and creators actually worried about? The conversation about and around AI safety can be broken down into two main camps, with a third group of skeptics who are challenging them both for good reasons. So understanding this debate helps us make sense of the news and decide where we should focus our attention and also where we stand and who we kind of agree with. So this helps us learn who to research and who to learn more from. So first, there's the present-day harms camp or group. And these are the ethicists, social critics, and researchers who say the most urgent dangers are the ones we can see right now. Thinkers like Timnit Gebru, Joy Buolamwini, and Karen Howe are key voices here. Their work focuses on things like algorithmic bias, how AI systems can make discriminatory decisions in hiring and loans and even criminal justice, often harming marginalized communities the most. And many people, I'm one of them, believe that those are the people who really need help the most. The second is misinformation, how generative AI makes it incredibly easy to create fake images and news stories, which can disrupt elections, the stock market, attacks on individuals, especially now that video production AI systems are becoming so much easier to use. And third is surveillance, how AI-powered facial recognition and monitoring tools are eroding our privacy even more and enabling new forms of social control by governments and corporations. An example is China's nation-centric control, especially under the powerful control of Xi Jinping, is becoming unstoppable with AI. And that's something that, does affect people in other parts of the world. Now, this camp argues that focusing on far-off future risks distracts us from fixing the very real damage these systems are causing today. And so they view it as a distraction more than anything else. The second group, that's often called the existentialist or existential risk camp, includes some of the founders of AI. They're often called the godfathers of AI, like Geoffrey Hinton. Geoffrey Hinton's been on, on the news, and he's been on lots of YouTube videos. He's the guy who left Google because he wanted to be able to speak freely about his concerns. And he and the existentialists are worried about the long-term catastrophic possibilities of a future artificial superintelligence, or ASI. And their core concerns are, one, the alignment problem. And this is a famous challenge of ensuring an AI's goal is truly aligned with human values. And the classic analogy that I've heard again and again is a comparison to King Midas, the king who wished for everything that he would touch would turn to gold. He thought that would bring him happiness. And he got his goal, but he starved to death when his food turned to gold. Every time he touched his food, the plate, the fork, anything, it turned to gold. So his goal was misaligned with his true values. An AI told to cure cancer might see eliminating all humans as the most efficient solution. And that seems so extreme and ridiculous, but maybe it does something in between. Maybe it undermines or alters tests or scores. So it's not really about malice, but about a powerful system pursuing a poorly specified goal. The second concern is instrumental convergence. And this is the idea that almost any intelligent AI, whatever its main goal, will figure out that it needs certain sub-goals to succeed. For example, self-preservation. It knows and figures out that it can't let anyone turn it off, or it won't be able to meet its main goals. And then resource acquisition. It might know that in order to achieve its goals, it needs more energy and computing power. And it could interfere with human decisions about those things. So the third is loss of control. And this is ultimately a huge issue where it comes to superintelligence. By definition, superintelligence would supersede or go beyond human intelligence. And so it would be impossible for us to control an AI that has superintelligence. Geoffrey Hinton puts the risk of AI eventually taking control from humans at somewhere between 10 to 20%. And that sounds like a low number and compared to 100% or 90 to 100, but it's a really big percentage if you're talking about this type of problem. Finally, there's the pragmatic skeptics camp. And this includes people like Meta's Yann LeCun and Coursera founder and AI leader Andrew Ng. And they argue that these existential fears are vastly exaggerated, that the people who are promoting them are creating what they call a doom myth. And they believe the focus on sci-fi apocalypse is being used to limit open source innovation, that large corporations are creating fear-based regulations in order to maintain the amount of control they already have and cement their own market power. So their solution is to stop trying to regulate the technology itself and instead focus on regulating specific high-risk applications like AI in medicine or AI in autonomous weapons. I can't help but think that some of this coming from Yann LeCun and Meta is because they're so far behind in AI development. And it wouldn't surprise me one bit if they change their tune as soon as they catch up. And they probably will get a lot closer considering how much money Meta is investing in hiring top AI talent away from OpenAI. So these are the three very different ways of looking at the problem. I personally think these risks are interconnected. They're not mutually exclusive. An AI ecosystem that ignores the present-day harms of bias and misinformation is not an ecosystem that's going to be careful enough to prevent long-term risks. So solving the problems of today is part of the best training that we can have for managing the challenges of tomorrow. And then hopefully we have learned something from the past 50 years of climate change, mainly that it's better to be safe than sorry, because the scale of consequences will only get bigger and harder when we talk about these kinds of tools. It's not going to get easier. So basically, what did we learn today? We kind of covered a lot. First, we started with the story of Oscarina and how important it is that we be mindful of people like her, Venezuelan data labelers, who are doing the necessary work but not really being rewarded and are not being taken care of at all. So, and this reminds us that AI safety is fundamentally, or should be fundamentally, about people, not just us, but other people in the process and the world. It's about ensuring technology is built and used in a way that's ethical and just for everyone, not just the end user or the people who create it. Our tool of the week was the model card, a nutrition label for AI, and we learned how to use AI leaderboards together with model cards so that we can better understand the tools that we're using. And our skill of the week was ethical evaluation. While using these 4 perspective lenses, the fact checker, bias detector, hidden agenda spotter, and privacy advocate, we can actively and critically engage with AI output. We can build our confidence and our AI taste at the same time for what makes a tool truly helpful and therefore worth the investment, both in finances and time. And then finally, we unpacked the great safety debate a little bit. We heard from the camps focused on present-day harms, long-term existential risks, and the skeptics who challenged them both. Hopefully, the big takeaway that you got from this is that safety isn't someone else's job. We do need to build safety into systems, especially for schools and students, but it's also our job. It's built into the questions we ask, the tools we choose, and the critical eye we bring to the process. And by practicing these skills, we ensure that as AI gets more powerful, we get smarter and wiser right along with it. As a teacher, I must apply and teach my students these skills. If I'm going to try to persuade my administration and school board to allow students to use these tools, they must learn about safety and ethics. Otherwise, the only relevant AI safety switch will be the off switch, and that doesn't help anyone prepare for anything. Thanks for spending time with me today on AI for Everyone. I hope this episode gave you something useful to think about or something new to try. If you enjoyed it, please tell your peers and subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Next week, I'll be talking about the Google Education Workspace tools and how effective they can be for teachers. You're also invited to join the Hanson Education Services newsletter, where I will soon start sharing bonus tools, practical teaching ideas, real-world examples, and curated updates to help you stay ahead in a world shaped by AI. To learn more, to connect with me directly, please visit hansoneducationservices.com. That's where you'll find all the podcast links, resources, show notes, research units, and more ways to grow your AI confidence. Thanks again, and remember, the most important 21st century skill is learning how to learn.